A small aircraft flying from Guatemala to the United States unexpectedly crashed in the remote ancient forests of Mexico. The 9 surviving passengers initially thought they had narrowly escaped death, but they soon met with a series of strange and eerie deaths. The story began with what seemed like a routine flight. The small passenger plane, flying from Guatemala to the United States, was cruising smoothly through the sky. A female passenger gazed out the window, her eyes scanning the dense forest below, feeling a slight sense of unease. She clearly remembered that the area beneath them was supposed to be the vast blue ocean, so why were they now over a forest in Mexico? It turned out that, due to the sudden onset of bad weather, the captain had to take an alternate route. This route, though it added an hour to the flight, was considered safer. The flight attendant smiled and explained to the passengers that they would safely reach their destination in another 2 hours. Hearing this, the passengers' concerns began to ease, as route adjustments are not uncommon during flights. However, none of them could have anticipated that this seemingly ordinary change would trigger a series of chilling events. What the passengers did not know was that inside the cockpit, the captain was furrowing his brows, his eyes fixed on the map as the radio kept emitting urgent distress signals. Just moments ago, the plane's GPS system had malfunctioned, and the radio signal had early cut out. To avoid causing panic, the captain did not notify the passengers without any navigation systems. He had to rely on the most basic tools, compass and map, to try and find their way through the unfamiliar airspace. However, after flying for a while, sweat began to form on the captain's forehead as he realized he was lost. None of the reference points on the map matched what he saw below, and all he could see was an endless expanse of forest, as if a giant green maze had trapped them inside. Worse still, the fuel gauge was steadily creeping into the red zone. With little time left, the captain desperately searched for a patch of land to make an emergency landing, but all he saw below were miles and miles of trees. Soon, the engine's roar abruptly stopped. The plane, like a giant bird with broken wings, plummeted toward the dense jungle below. The screams of the passengers pierced the air, and terror swept through the entire cabin. When the passengers slowly regained consciousness, they were greeted by the sight of a wrecked but miraculously intact cabin. The plane had somehow made a successful emergency landing in the jungle. 8 passengers miraculously survived. With only one person injured, the flight attendant who had not fastened her seatbelt, her neck seeming to have sustained a severe impact. A male passenger shook his head as he saw her condition, declaring that her injuries were beyond saving. After opening the cockpit door, they discovered that the captain was still alive. Though his condition was dire, his chest had been pierced by a branch. At that moment, the passengers noticed that the plane's engine was on fire, and thick smoke mixed with the acrid smell of burning filled the air. In their panic, the passengers worked together to kick open the deformed cabin door and rushed outside. A quick-thinking female passenger grabbed a fire extinguisher and sprayed it at the flames. To her surprise, the fire was easily extinguished. However, as the white powder slowly settled, she was astonished to find that the first man to rush out of the cabin had not fled far. Instead, he was crouching by the luggage compartment, frantically rummaging through his luggage as if the items inside were more important than his life. Some passengers took out their phones, attempting to call for help, but there was no signal. Time passed, and 8 days